If Nintendo goes down this route, this tiniest of changes to the architecture of their system could have absolutely vast consequences for the future of their hardware development approach. Now, this is a video based on leaks and rumours, which I usually avoid for a few reasons. For one, although the channel is a forecasting channel, I tend to prefer to use known and transparent data such as financial records or past Nintendo statements than leaks and rumours where you end up trying to eyeball the credibility of individual leakers, which is usually hard to ascertain. And yet, irrespective of the provenance of this concept, one concept stands tall as having such seductively high potential that it really deserves serious consideration. Yes, it's time to talk about that upward-facing USB-C port and why it may well be the low-key secret to Nintendo's future plans. And yes, I know these are big words, but let me explain. For years and years, Nintendo's handheld line has been their secondary unit of their video game offers, despite often being the better selling option on the market at any particular time. They have often used initiatives to try to connect the portable system into the main system in a variety of ways. Super Game Boy on Super NES, or the link cables to join Game Boy Advance and GameCube being two such examples, but generally speaking, the consoles would stand alone. While the Sega Game Gear had a television adapter and all sorts of other goodies, generally speaking it was the Nintendo home consoles which were festooned with dance mats, balance boards and a host of other accessories. Of course, the arrival of the Switch as neither a home console nor a handheld, but a true hybrid of the two console styles, meant rethinking how they approach accessories, and this is where the USB-C port comes in. Now, on face value, sure, there is a very simple reason to have a port at the top, and that's to make it much more convenient to power the system while playing the games. However, that wouldn't explain why, if the rumours are true, two USB ports would be required. It would, after all, be possible to dock the system upside down without really affecting anything. A bit weird maybe, but Nintendo has done that kind of thing before. But beyond this, I think the second USB port opens up a world of more possibilities. Specifically, the potential is also there for small and light accessories to be appended to the base system, either accessories through cables or even very small sensors and additions that connect through the USB port. And this is what's interesting to me. Here's the thing, Nintendo is going to want a Nintendo. Their aim is always to surprise and delight, and in the past they have aimed to do that with wildly varying success through their core iterations of their console offerings. If the Switch 2, as many people have been calling it for a long time, and perhaps it may actually be called, if the Switch 2 is truly an iterative sequel, then in one sense they've made their immediate transition to the next generation easier, but they've also just pushed back to a later point the challenge of offering something truly innovative that will allow them to maintain that blue ocean strategy. They'll have safeguarded their immediate sales, and it's true that at present even fairly well-known handheld play devices like the Steam Deck haven't managed anywhere near the market penetration of Switch. Still, Sega were pretty confident they'd seen off the likes of the Atari Jaguar and the Panasonic 3DO in the mid-90s, only to get blindsided by the Sony PlayStation. It feels to me like one disruptive, high-value, well-marketed entrant into the hybrid space could easily give Nintendo a run for their money. Nintendo will of course compete on its unique selection of games, but the other string to their bow is their capacity to offer play experiences nobody else does. And now they can still offer that level of creativity with a mix of core console and a series of add-ons. We've already seen this strategy to some degree with the Switch. Check out Labo or Ring Fit Adventure. I'm sure Nintendo will wish to keep doing that kind of thing, using accessories to expand the types of available play experiences. But Labo and Ring Fit involve big, cumbersome accessories that are really one-offs. However, the USB on top is such a simple way to open up a whole raft of very tiny changes which could have outsized impact on the way that we play games. Let's take a look into what that potential might be. Firstly, there are accessories that enrich existing games. Cameras, microphones, additional speakers, a small second screen for DS titles, a 3D screen for 3DS titles, or a wired VR headset. Any or all of these are low-hanging fruit, which would be pretty awesome, and could surely be done in a manner small enough and light enough that it could append to the Switch in a fairly easy way. Of course, there are limits, mainly in terms of weight and size. For one thing, despite the trials of getting the Joy-Con to function correctly for an extended lifespan, Nintendo generally likes their systems to be robust, and USB chargers are risky places where pressure could cause breakages, which might impair the capacity of the system to be charged and therefore to work at all. Therefore, I would expect either wired accessories or very light add-ons which naturally limit what could be added. But I don't think it limits them very much, since in the recent years everything has become progressively smaller. Things could get really wild. What if Nintendo needed a radio antenna for a game or something that detected smells? Now it's simplicity itself to add this on. What about their dedication to fitness games? Consider, for example, a product called Lumen. This isn't a sponsorship and I make no claims for the veracity or otherwise of Lumen's claims, but you may have seen Lumen, which purports to be able to use a breath analysis technology to provide metabolic information. From Nintendo's point of view though, what an opportunity to expand outward from just the pulse rate tracker on Ring Fit Adventure if they could build a proper suite of health apps utilizing something as simple as breath analysis or another similar faded technology. We know they have looked into health before, and we know that both Switch Sports and Ring Fit Adventure did absolutely sensational numbers for them. I am absolutely sure that branching to health and well-being is going to be a major plank of their business going forward. Another way they can innovate is in the maker space. Nintendo has shown interest in this with Labo, Mario Kart Live Home Circuit, and Super Mario Maker. Plus, even back in the Super NES era, they had Mario Paint. For an example of what a Maker USB add-on could look like, I am always impressed with the BBC Microbit. Simpler than a Raspberry Pi, this is a type of programmable computer with various sensors which can do a massive amount despite being beguilingly simple. The potential for Nintendo to develop the kind of game programming concepts they looked at with Game Builder Garage is significant. Nintendo can't be oblivious to the huge success of Lego, and of course, way back they had their own Lego-style playset. The potential to plug the Switch into the center of a much more complicated creation has to be tantalizing to them. But I'm only talking about existing ideas. The point of the upward-facing USB is that it is a blank check for all their future creatives and indeed for future emergent technologies. For the price of one incredibly cheap port, they've allowed not just their own developers but also third parties to create new and original hardware accessories for the system to expand and transform it for the whole of the new system's life. Now, before we get carried away, you may say, hasn't it always been possible to add these kinds of things on? To which I say yes and no. Obviously, big items like a steering wheel or fitness ring have required extra bump and would still do so for the new Switch, but with only a bottom-facing USB, appending accessories to the core Switch has been tricky. The last time Nintendo could really rely on it being able to do this was the Wii and Wii U era, when they had a home console, but of course the Wii U was basically dead on arrival, so that wasn't exactly an auspicious time to launch a new console accessory. And I know Switch is also a home console, but since a significant portion, perhaps a majority of their player base, do not access it in this way, there is far less potential to utilize tech add-ons, although Ring Fit is an obvious example of a time when they did do this and acknowledged that the game would probably be primarily played on television, although I will say I have used Ring Fit using the kickstand before, and it does work fine. Basically though, this is the first time that Nintendo have been easily able to both financially and technologically plug in additional elements to their system since the late 2000s. But back in that time, back in the Wii era, did Nintendo take advantage of this capacity? Let me think. Yes, they really did. From the Disney Infinity base to plug in, toys, through to the backdoor controller revisions such as Wii Motion Plus, as well as key devices like the fitness board and vitality sensor. The Wii was absolutely a console that Nintendo used plugins to advance its potential. This was a great move for Nintendo as it leverages the large install base they hope to quickly acquire to buy higher ticket items than just a game. Ring Fit Adventure's $80 retail price reflects the game and the accessory, but while the accessory is big and bulky and probably therefore has extra costs to transport and the cost to store it would be higher, I suspect the margin on the Pilates ring is quite hefty and they're making a decent profit from it. Accessorizing therefore not only makes sense creatively but also financially. They may not all be as successful as Ring Fit, but they don't need to be. If Labo had to flop for Ring Fit to fly, the outsized success of Ring Fit more than accounts fully dip their experience with Labo. And it's very Nintendo. They love weird, gimmicky things, and yet most of these in the Switch generation have been very much minor add-ons, varieties of Joy-Con or the Let's Go Pokeball, which on a personal note I thought was a great idea, but I found very uncomfortable to actually use. But perhaps the most significant part of the USB add-on is the potential it offers to allow Nintendo to dip their toe into the waters of innovation without going full tilt Wii U. Here's a counterfactual to consider. It's 2010. Nintendo launches a gamepad with a touchscreen to go with the Wii. Basically, a Wii U in all but name, except instead of it being a console that people think is just an accessory, this would actually be just an accessory, albeit an expensive one. This gamepad does numbers that are Wii U number-ish. Nintendo, therefore, as a result of the cool reception, rethinks its decision to centre the new console on multi-screen gaming, and so the Wii U is released as basically just a cheap sequel system to the Wii, one that could utilise the gamepad but wasn't tied to it. Would it have made a difference to the Wii sequel's fortune? Probably not. The Wii U had many other problems, from its undercooked initial game lineup to the alienation of the core player base across the later Wii's life, as Nintendo aimed to chase a casual crowd who then got bored and moved on, but at the very least offering a low price entry point into HD gaming in 2012, something Nintendo could have done if they didn't have to fuss about with the gamepad, would likely have spurred a few extra sales. Nintendo needs its blue water because on a straight competition for tech, they are always going to struggle. Yes, they have their unique game library, but they also have their capacity to move the industry forward through surprising and delightful new twists on seasoned technology. It's just that these don't need to be wholesale system concepts. Whether this current generation of leaks is true or not, I suspect that once the system picks up any kind of sales traction, we could find ourselves entering a new era of Nintendo add-ons, and I, for one, am very excited to see what it brings. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Do check out the Patreon, or like, comment, share and subscribe for more. There are some absolutely cracking videos being advertised on screen right now, and I will see you next time for another Nintendo Forecast.